Can incredible fame guarantee the best watch collection? Does unlimited cash buy good taste in watches? Did Ed Sheeran star in the hit TV show 5 Children and It back in 1991? All this and more coming up. Ever since I first saw Daniel Craig emerging from the water in those bright blue shorts, I knew he was the complete package. And what better watch to be wearing as the seafaring James Bond than Bond creator Ian Fleming's watch of choice, Rolex. Of course, the Bond franchise's less than subtle product placement has seen fit to rewrite fictional history, strapping an Omega to Craig's wrist instead.
Rolex?
Omega.
But it's not all as it seems, because Craig's love of Omega started before he became contractually obliged to become a one-brand man, inheriting a vintage Omega from his father when he was young.
My father bought me a vintage Omega.
The planet ocean that relaunched Omega alongside Bond's own rebirth as a gritty, more realistic hero is the crowning jewel of his collection, although there's the unexpected addition of a couple of vintage pieces, as well as the Fratello limited edition Speedy Tuesday, a homage to the 1978 Alaska Project 3, developed for the Space Shuttle cruise. About 5 years ago, car guy and watch collector Matt Farah introduced Joe Rogan to mechanical wristwatches. A little skeptical to begin with, Rogan eventually fell down the rabbit hole as he discovered everything from the insanity of a Jacob & Co. to the quiet complexity of Grand Seiko Spring Drive. In fact, if you pause the tape, you can spot the exact moment Rogan's wallet shatters into 1,000 pieces.
People are so creative.
Yeah.
They can figure out how to do things like this on something like a watch.
See, look at the red goo going around.
Since then, he's upgraded his albeit very accomplished G-Shock to the obligatory Rolex Submariner, Omega Seamaster No Time to Die edition, Seiko Captain Willard, and even, to bring the Joe Rogan watch experience all the way back full circle, a Grand Seiko. Matt since said that Grand Seiko reached out to him to thank him for repping the brand on that original show in what was probably the single best piece of PR they could ever have. However big the check they thanked him with, it wasn't big enough. Musicians and watches go together like musicians and a crippling need for attention, and ever since John Mayer appeared on that famous episode of Talking Watches, where Ben Clymer gazed lovingly into his eyes for a solid 9 minutes, the archetype was set. So deeply linked is John Mayer with watches that there's a Rolex nicknamed after him. I'm not sure who gets more hot under the collar for Mayer, the ladies listening to him croon in concert, or the gents staring at his wrist in a dark room online. His collecting started with a Rolex Explorer 2, which his manager suggested he didn't wear on his first TV appearance, advice he promptly ignored by amassing a collection CNBC claimed was valued at 1/4 of his net worth. John Mayer coined the premise of picking up dog poo with a Patek.
I clean up dog poop wearing a paddock.
If you could name it, John Mayer's had it, and that's not just limited to watches. Rumour has it that Ed Sheeran is actually John Mayer's illegitimate child following an illicit affair between Mayer and Sesame Street's Oscar the Grouch, and whilst the family resemblance is lacking on the Mayer side, there's clearly a dreadful genetic affliction that's been passed down from father to son. No, I don't mean the dead eyes and unnatural ability to make music for airports, I'm talking about watches. Sheeran's first was the rubber-clad toy watch, a purchase as unassuming and innocent as the man himself. But with enormous success came an instinctive urge to turn dollars and pounds into shiny timepieces, and that's where Mayer's groundbreaking work wearing perpetual calendar Pateks with jeans and a t-shirt really paid off. But there comes a time when every son outgrows his father, and Sheeran did so by veering into the strange and uncharted worlds of Roger Smith and Kikuchi Nakagawa. That's when the student became the master, and then he went and ruined it all by wearing a hideous white ceramic Royal Oak perpetual calendar. From stumbling incoherently around Philadelphia to supercharging Italian wrist clock manufacturer Panerai, Sylvester Stallone has done more for action hero watch collectors than any other man alive. Perhaps it's better to classify his watch collecting tastes less by what he owns and more by what he's chosen to get rid of, publicly listing 5 watches for sale with Phillips Auction House a few years ago, as well as the Panerai that made Panerai famous on Stallone's wrist in the movie Daylight, a movie that's probably more famous for that Panerai than it is the movie itself by this point. The watches that went up for sale were exclusively Richard Mille. That includes the limited edition RM2501, the most expensive way to equip yourself with the barest minimum to survive the jungle. Why spend the $1 million asking price on a helicopter out of there when you can get a compass and spirit level instead? As a very modern celebrity, it's of course important for a Mangazi to maintain a reputation for keeping the source of his fame and wealth a complete mystery. These days, it's very passé to actually have a body of work attached to your success, because then people will think you've worked hard, and working hard is for poor people. Instead, it's better to suggest enormous wealth has come from the kinds of life hacks that make snake oil seem like a completely reasonable purchase, and have a watch collection to prove it. From the Patek Philippe Nautilus to the Richard Mille RM35, it's vital the collection appeals exclusively to teenagers on Instagram who can't wait to drop out of school to become insta-famous social media millionaires in just 5 easy steps. Apparently anything else is only good enough to get licked by the dog. Self-titled Mr. Wonderful has been taking some tips on his collection from none other than Teddy Baldassar. It's like Teddy is a smooth-talking horological Terminator that's been sent back from the future to prevent the demise of the Swiss watch industry by getting Kevin O'Leary to appreciate some watches that aren't Rolex, Patek or AP. And it's worked because there's a selection here that actually took me by surprise. Yes, they all feature straps that make his wrist look like the Rolling Stones logo, but I'm willing to overlook that when he's repping the recently revived Nevada Grenchen, a beautiful Anordain, and the 925 Silver Black Bay 58. These are the kinds of watches for people who call themselves watch guys, and despite Kevin being a cut-price Captain Picard, there's no denying he's made some good choices. When Teddy is inevitably melted in a vat of molten steel, it won't be for nothing. Mark Walberg's a smart guy, getting ahead of cancel culture by starting the 90s off with perhaps the most politically incorrect advert I think has ever been broadcast on television. After this, go and search Mark Walberg 1992 Calvin Klein commercial and prepare to be astounded.
Hold me snug.
They broadcast that advert after The Simpsons, and it was The Simpsons people complained about. Anyway, Marky Mark's done well for himself since, and now he has the watch collection to prove it. What watches has he got? Well, you know the ones no one can get. He's got those ones. Rolex Le Mans. Most people aren't even sure if it's real, but Marky Mark's got one. Celebration Dial. Rainbow. Mark Walberg gets them so fast it makes my teeth itch. And that's just the tip of this horological iceberg. If you saw the rest, you'd get watch-induced thalassophobia. I've been watching Adam Savage, as we all have, since the Mythbusters days, and I have and will always continue to be enamoured with his chaotic approach to making incredible things. I'm deeply fascinated by the production of cinema, and Adam is a conduit to that world for me. He's also, as it turns out, a big watch fan, and I suppose that's no surprise. He enjoys building fiddly things that have no real use except for enjoyment. He's been wearing, very loosely I might add, an Omega Planet Ocean for a long while, but he recently got himself a Seiko mod that closely mimics the Omega Seamaster 300. And whilst his casual handling of the watch makes my elbows tingle just a little bit, I can't help but admire a guy who could probably get pretty much any watch he wanted, deriving pleasure from something as cheap and cheerful as this. Adam is someone I'd very much like to meet in real life, and if he's half as interesting as he comes across in his videos, it'd be a great day. Somewhere around the time he discovered the elixir of life, Brad Pitt got into watches. Of course, being one of the most famous people alive today, he's had his fair share, including the obvious choices like Rolex, Patek Philippe and Cartier. But there's one watch he owns that's really demonstrated how star power like his can go supernova. So Brad Pitt's a Breitling ambassador. He's part of the not cringy at all cinema squad, who, alongside the Surfer Squad and All-Star Squad, go out and solve crimes at night in a psychedelic van with their talking dog, or something. I don't know. Hashtag squad on a mission. Anyway, so Brad Pitt is contractually obliged to wear Breitling watches at certain times, but apparently not all the time, because not long after its release, he was spotted wearing a very special watch indeed, the Vacheron Constantin 222. This is Vacheron's most out there watch for a long time, and people were waiting with bated breath to see what kind of reception it'd get, and then Breitling ambassador Brad Pitt goes out and buys one. The icing on the cake, he followed up with a vintage one in steel as well. Spotted any celebs wearing some unexpected tickers? Let me know about them down in the comments. Thanks for watching, please do like and subscribe, and make sure to take all your phone calls on loudspeaker. Goodbye. Still here? Watch this video next.